Hello guys, welcome back to Simplified by Jinal Shah, and in this video we are going to talk about Aurum Metallicum, a very famous remedy, gold or AU, right? So we all have a perception about gold. Most of us know how expensive it is and how much of a precious metal it is, and so is this remedy because I have a feeling that the future generation is going to be needing a lot more of it, right? So I don't want to start it traditionally about how it is and what symptoms it acts on. I found a very peculiar symptom which is hemiopia. Now I have to quickly explain what it mentions in the book. I am referring to the Allen's keynote and Boric for this drug, hemiopia, where they have said that the person can only see the lower half. The upper half is blind and he can see only through the lower half of his eyes. Upper half is invisible. Okay. Now, technically, this is not possible. If you've done physiology pretty well, you know that there are quadrants. You have either nasal or temporal vision, or there's semis. Even if it had to be lower half, again, there's only nasal or temporal. This is slightly rare, where both the parts of an upper quadrant have disappeared or are not visible to the person. But, anyways, moving forward with this symptom, which says that sees only lower half, I'm going to make a metaphor out of it, and we are going to focus more on the mental symptoms of Aurum here. He sees only lower half, that is, he only sees down, like he only looks down, and it's mostly about himself. It's not that he looks down on people or others, but he looks down on himself. Now, once you've realized this symptom, once this sentence is engraved, you are done with the whole mentals. Okay? You're done with the whole mentals, and I will make sure that it is done. Now, Aurum as a person is very duty bound. We know that. He has a lot of duties. He's the one who's responsible for all household chores. He's the eldest one, probably, or somebody everybody's relying on. And of course, you cannot keep everybody happy and you're going to make mistakes, but he takes so much guilt out of it. So every time he fails or he's not able to succeed at the highest possible level, remember he's gold, so he has some standards for himself. And every time he's not able to do it, he's going to go in guilt, which is going to go in self condemnation, self hate, and ultimately dislike for the life itself. He's tired of life and melancholy. And the next stage we could have predicted was constant dwelling for suicide. Right. So this is a chain of thoughts that happen. He's kind of looking down on himself. He's duty bound, very industrious. He's feeling guilty that he's not able to do his best. He's not able to give his best. And there's self condemnation and hate. Now, if we have to just broaden this a bit, uh, he feels that he cannot succeed in anything. A very pessimistic view towards life, and it's not that he cannot succeed. He can. He's pretty good. Let me tell you, he's pretty good, but he has such high standards for himself that he is never able to meet it. Even though he's pretty good, he is low on confidence, because if he wants to achieve 100, he's able to achieve a 90, and that's not okay to him. So he's going to be always low on confidence in that matter. He has delusion that he has neglected his duty, right? Now, what would a person do if he thinks that he's not doing enough? From this explanation, what we understand is that he thinks he should be doing a lot and he's not doing enough. He's going to be restless, or rather, I would say that he's somebody who is in needs to do a lot of physical and mental work, right? It's a great desire for physical and mental activity. It's like a mechanism for compensation. If you haven't done enough, you would overcompensate yourself. So activity could be both physical as well as mental. in a way to deal with his guilt that I haven't done enough or I am not good enough. He's going to do that excessively. Physically, we can see it in restlessness. Mentally, we see it in his hurried nature, hurried behavior, very uneasy behavior. Melancholy could also be reflected, or in general, sadness and depression. There's a mention that life is a constant burden, and he's dwelling on suicide. Uh, Usually, they say that Aurums are never very vocal about it, but they have the most dreadful plans about killing themselves. So, dwelling of suicide again, he's hopeless and he's depressed. Now, why would all of these happen? And for that, we need like really strong ailments from, and there are a bunch of ailments from that is mentioned in the books, and I'm going to list down all of them here. And these are the ailment from that we are usually talking about when we talk about aurum, and they are fright, anger, vexation, contradiction, mortification, grief, disappointment, and love, and reserved displeasure. Please comment down which other remedy is very famous for reserved displeasure. Uh, all the meanings you should read about them, dictionary, that what is the difference between mortification and vexation, because it's going to help be very helpful in your repertory lectures. But in general, if I had to just briefly say that something that deeply affects him, and that would lead to this whole chain, which again brings me to another point that not everybody would be affected by somebody upsetting you or somebody humiliating you. It has to be a oversensitive person. So this person is oversensitive, not just mentally but also physically, to all of the senses, your touch, smell, taste, hearing, and mentally. So even the least contradiction is going to affect him. He's going to be out of his place and not going to like it at all. This is mainly the mental symptoms, and we've done it through this one symptoms that sees only lower half or looks down on himself. Now going into the other details of his face, it's usually black hair with like bald patches, and the face is olive brown in color, olive brown complexion. Not going in further details, but this bald patch is important. That brings me to the second part of the remedy, that the remedy has a syphilitic origin. uh, By the time you do aurum, you should be good with your miasms, and if you're doing syphilitic miasm, all of the characteristics, all of the symptoms I could greatly put in here, and that's it. That would be your drug. Okay, so if you know even briefly about miasm and if you know about syphilitic, there's one point, that is there are going to be night aggravations. So it's a sunset to sunrise remedy. All of the symptoms will get worse at night time. Okay, second thing is abuse of mercury or venereal illnesses, which would happen. Venereal illness, reason for guilt. Abuse of mercury could come in ailments from. Okay, third would be malignancy or a high level of damage, or tumors. You could have tumors. Now there's a psychosyphilitic element here when we call about tumors. Tumors is glands are swollen. Glands could be throat glands or inguinal glands, but there is a tendency for swollen glands, and that also affects the person. It is not purely acute infection. It's slightly more chronic and dangerous than that. Another thing that we talk about aurum, and that is about caries of bones. If you know about the disease syphilis, you know that it affects the bones as well. And the most common bone that they talk about are of face, nasal bone. Then you have your palate bones, your mastoids, again zygoma. So these bones are usually affected, and there is caries. There's going to be a very weird and a dirty looking face because of that. Uh, with each bone, you can think of a discharge, and that brings me to a fifth symptom, that is offensive discharges. Offensive and bloody discharges. So nasal will have a bloody discharge, offensive discharge. We will have otorrhea. Mouth will have a foul breath. There's going to be gums which are going to be ulcerated, and then foul smelling gums again. So that is what happens at each part and each orifices. All discharges will have an offensive and a bleeding tendency. And one more symptom that we could add on with this is with melancholia, we could add on is anxiety. Right, somebody who is constantly dwelling about what could have been right and what he's done is wrong, and so much self condemnation and self hate is going to go for anxiety. And it's like fear for future, constantly fearful of future, how he's going to do it, how he's going to achieve it, because he's also low in confidence. There's uneasiness, restlessness, which we've already mentioned somewhere. Now we come to more physical aspect of anxiety, where we could probably mention about the heart symptoms. And the heart symptoms is like the heart stood still, and then it starts with a thump. So it's probably trying to indicate some sort of panic attack tendency here. And in a more physical side, it could be lowered BP because pulse is small, feeble, irregular. Correct. So all these symptoms are of more physical nature. It's rapid and there is visible beating at carotid and temporal regions. So actually what we think about Aurum would be somebody who is so good at everything. From externally he's pure gold person, but this is what goes on internally. They're probably very good performance because they have a great desire for activity. They always outperform their own expectations, but they're never really happy because they have such high standards and they're so critical about themselves. There's one more part that I would like to add. Because of the duty bound nature, we could prescribe Aurum in people who have it's mentioned in the textbooks as spinned boys or atrophied testicles. It's also because every male has this duty to have kids, or that is what was the culture and the heritage. Spinned boys or somebody with atrophied testicles, similarly sterility in females where they have this whole bound, they feel guilty for not being able to have kids, and there's self-hate and melancholy. So if this cycle persists in this situation, there's also vaginismus that's mentioned in the textbooks. So again, vaginismus, and they think they are not able to do it and they are guilty about it. So if you find this sequence, the one in blue, anywhere, you could think of giving Aurum as the remedy. Probably it shouldn't necessarily go till the stage where they are dwelling on suicide, but somewhere where they're too guilty about it. It's a syphilitic remedy. It shouldn't be given in a very soric or a very uh, normal or acute conditions. And that is it for Aurum Metallicum. Please let me know in the comment section below which remedy comes very close to Aurum and it starts with the letter C. And if you could give me one or two symptoms that are different of Aurum and that remedy. If you've liked the video, please hit the like button. I'm going to come up with more and more polycrest remedies soon enough. Share it with your friends, and if you haven't subscribed to the channel already, I think it is time that you should. Thank you.